weapon.
Alright, we buffed the guy that we were already gonna sap. So that was a misplay on his part. Even trying dot dark? Come on.
Right. Just swing your weapon and sap it.
Oh, he sapped his own 314. I like this line.
Yay, sap it!
Hold on. Preemptive ding.
Oh! Why would he do that?
Step one. Here we go.
We might win! Dude, he found the line!
Holy shit.
What? How do you throw this game? What?
Unreal.
We literally had 0 outs.
Dude, the preemptive ding gets him every time.
We had
There's no
0
beating a
outs.
preemptive ding.
Literally 0.
No, don't greet me. Oh god! No! Alright, ding for the opponent. I think he got the
had
huffer.
it, dude.
No, he deserved it. He greetings first, then rolled the huffer. I mean, like, you can't be mad at that. That's just good Hearthstone fundamentals. Also, Jetpack Zombie subbed for 7 months and said, I never wanted to breed with anyone more than I want to with Aya Blackpaw. That perfect curvy body. Those bountiful breasts. The childbearing hips of a literal goddess. It honestly hurts knowing that I'll never mate with her. Invention.
You probably have to brawl, right?
Fucking now brawl. Yeah.
Brawl.
Dynamatic wins. We've seen the script before.
God fucking damn it. You know what, Dynamatic? I challenge you to another fight.
And this
I'm
one's
winning
personal.
one, dude. I'm winning one.
Dynamatic always wins this, by the way.
How is this thing not bad?
Imagine trying to kill Dynamatic with a brawl.
Poor brawls, dude.
He needs to hold his waggle pick to play around your Bloodsail Corsair here.
Yeah. Otherwise, it's the Shadow Step triggered unopportunely. You always hold it versus Bloodsail and swing versus Ooze.
And we don't have Ooze, but we do have Bloodsail, so he holds the weapon charge this turn.
Mm-hmm. I think he runs Fan.
No.
Oh my gosh, he's gonna get another pirate out there, huh? Going full party on us. Oh, did
Really?
he didn't hit the other Dread Corsair?
GateKid1234, thank you so much for that Twitch Prime, much appreciated.
You got him! You got him! you tricked this noob! Oh my god! Come on, dude! That shouldn't have worked on this guy.
God.
Oh my god. Yeah, buddy. He's so tilted! He's so tilted! Alright.
It was on fucking board.
We actually just drove that sniper insane, dude.
Oh, I like that guy. That was good.
Yeah, it was funny.
That'll teach you to listen to my advice. Never again.
Yeah. I can't believe that worked.
That's unreal.
Oh my god, we got him again.
Wow. He's got something to prove now.
One amazing lethal I had in the past with Hearthstone was, it was just all of a sudden we were just like pyroblasting each other's faces, me against the AI, and then I was so close to thinking I was losing, and then it pyroblasted my opponent's face, and luckily the secret wasn't an ice block.
Sure. Start the game with one of Zale's evil decks.
Whoa, that's not a card in the game.
What in the fuck?
That's not supposed to be there.
Does Tess Reek play Zerog's Crown?
No, that's a road curse.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Trade.
You got a point.
Fuck you, purple.
It's the better board control players.
Oh god.
That's by far the better board control player.
Very true. Very true.
We've retained the 1/1 for our efforts.
Reporting for duty.
Why did you make interesting plan?
But we'll see. We'll see what the... It might bug the game. We might have broken the game. Because it's like a weird token. Yo! It just removed the minions from the deck! What? That's... Oh my god, now I have no minions in my deck.
Firebat, how's everything looking for you guys?
Pretty strong. I lost on the first boss 3 times with the random decks. So the random decks, it feels like they...
Because you saw that Allie was losing and you felt like, wow, she's taking that record away from me and I need to one-up her.
Actually completely random Hearthstone cards. And they were really bad, and the first boss just kept beating me.
Ah, okay.
I went to clear the board with Dragon's Fury, and my deck had no other spells in the entire deck.
All right, well, yeah, sounds tough. Yeah. Sounds tough with the random decks.
Sounds like a great deck doctor opportunity.
Well, yeah, we're going to check back in with Regis to see,
No, your way was probably... Oh, God, that sucked. Ancient Watcher just helps him all game. There we go. Easy game.
Nilos, thank you for subbing.
Ton Amy Salad, thank you for that Twitch Prime.
Yeah. Good. The natural predator of the Mountain Giant, Cobalt Lackey.
Yeah, just farms it.
Kills it for 1 mana.
One night, I was called on to scry. But what is this symbol I spy?
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Omnistone. Today is June 6, 2019, and this is episode number 95 with myself, Frodan, your host. Today we are on Firebat's Twitch channel because Brian Kilber is out in Boston, Massachusetts. In fact, I think he's hosting a meetup right now at Fenway Park for people who happen to be in the greater Massachusetts area and wants to go meet Brian Kilber. But we're also joined by Zalay. So let's check in with our panelists. Firebat, how you doing, man?
Doing pretty good. Pretty happy with the buffs. Been having a lot of fun messing around with them. Although a little bit sad because I think the deck that got buffed the most was Control Warrior and Bomb Warrior, which, if any deck needed help, it probably wasn't that one.
Yeah, well, we'll talk a little bit more about that, but we also want to check in with Zalay, our special guest filling in for Kibler. You're ready, Zalay? It's some big shoes to fill.
I'm so ready. I'm so ready that I'm still building my meme deck, though.
Well, thanks for taking a brief intermission to join us for this episode of Omnistone. So what we're going to do is the usual. We're going to have some news. We're going to talk about the Rise of the Mechs event that Firebat was alluding to. We're going to do some of your questions from the mailbag. And then Zalay and I will throw down in the Who's Meme Reign Supreme that we had last week. But we'll see my take versus Zalay's take, which should be fun. So the first thing in the news that we want to talk about, what we got here is the new card backs. So one of the cool things about the Masters bundle, which we'll talk about in just a second, is that you get a cool Thunder related card back. And then these are the card backs for the next coming months. So if you get 5 rank wins in June and 5 rank wins in July, you get some nice stuff. I'm not sure if you guys know more about things like Shadow Pan and Surmar and like some more related things.
Know a little bit about this sort of stuff, and one thing I can comment on here is that if you would like to get the Stolen Thunder card back and you would like to support content creators like Zalay and Firebat, you can check out our Twitter pages. We have an affiliate link. And if you buy through the affiliate link, we get 5% of the money that you spend on that card back and bundle. So, wow. If you want to give away free money, we're open.
I like free money. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
if you're going to buy it anyway, right?
$1 to Firebat, $1 to Zalay.
Yeah, exclamation mark affiliate in chat. Get a link to it, right?
In Zalay's chat, of course. Right
yeah,
now.
obviously my chat, not Firebat.
Yeah, we're on Firebat.
I don't even. So many people like me way better than Firebat.
I don't even know if I have a bot command set up, but I do have it on my Twitter. So I should set up a bot command though.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and just move on to the Masters Bundle discussion here, which I think is an interesting news point for a lot of reasons. The first is a brief overview for people who do not know, is that for $20, $20 US dollars, you get 10 packs from Roscon's Rumble and 10 packs from Rise of Shadows, which already in itself is a discounted pack rate than normal because you get about 15 packs for $20 normally in the client. You also get a new hero skin called the Thunder King Shaman hero. I think people were calling him Lei Shan. I'm not super familiar, but I think that's what it is. And then up to 50% of the sales goes towards the 2019 Masters Tour events with a cap of 70 or 750,000 US dollars, or because there's 3 Masters Tours event, 250K per tournament, which essentially doubles the prize pool for every open. And that's a really cool initiative. I do think that a lot of people were first wondering, like, is Blizzard going to be very transparent about this? Like, are they going to update us on like the progress of it, or are they just kind of like leaving it indefinitely like quiet about that? But the most important thing is that this kind of support has been asked and even begged for years of Blizzard as a company, and it feels like they're finally starting to do that. They did it with the StarCraft 2 War Chest, and they're doing it here, and I'm just really happy to see that actually come to fruition. And I know, actually, I want to go to Firebat first, because you were there since the very beginning, in 2014, winning the World Championship. And it's kind of like funny to see Hearthstone come along this journey, right? After 5 years, we're able to get this.
Yeah, it seems pretty cool that it's happening. It's traditional Blizzard style. You ask for it for 5 years, and then eventually they do it. So it's awesome. Yeah, really happy that they're supporting the prize pools and doing initiatives to support the esports scene more.
Gotcha. Zalay, any comments?
I mean, it's just such a win-win. How could you be anything other than happy about this, right? It's if you want to buy the bundle, you can, and it supports a bunch of people, and it's awesome. It's got to be good business for Blizzard too, right? Like, why wouldn't they want to promote their product in this way? Good publicity.
It is, and I think that there's a couple of things that people immediately look at it. They say, why cap it? First of all, I think I know firsthand, working with companies that do things like this. Like I'm a Twitch employee, so that if they ever do like a deal on certain things, like I have insight on how marketing and sales people like discuss. So in terms of what Blizzard might be thinking, again, this is me not knowing. I wasn't sitting there. I don't have any confirmation. This is just speculation. But if you offer a discounted product for sales and anything, even if it's like a good cause, let's say right now it's Pride Month, right? And people are like trying to do closed sales for like raising money for this kind of awareness thing. People will still buy it anyways, even regardless of the cause. So it's very difficult for people to evaluate, like on Blizzard's side, are people buying this bundle because it's a good deal? Or are people buying it because they actually want to support the Masters Tour events? So if they kind of like infinitely scale this, they, in their mind, when they're trying to generate revenue, which is what a business is ultimately trying to do, they're trying to appropriately support the scene while also making sure that they can get very valuable information. So I think that by packaging cosmetics and having a discounted bundle, like Zalay said, it's very good business. But at the same time, it's very difficult to try to say, like, yeah, everyone bought this bundle because they love esports. And it's like, that's not true. Like, I'm 100% confident that a big portion of the people that buy, even the majority of it that buy this bundle, don't even watch a single minute of Hearthstone esports, let alone the Masters Tour part. So I think that's a little bit of part of the discussion and debate, because I think there was some social media like questioning like why cap it. But it is a very generous cut, right? 50% is a lot more. It's twice as much as what Valve does for the international. But at the same time, people want to see like that $20 million prize pool type of hype, right? Because that's what they want to feel like they're part of something bigger than themselves. And I partake in that. I, for example, buy the TI Battle Pass, even though I don't really play Dota 2 anymore for a few years.
Also, they probably had to go to their higher ups and be like, how much money are we potentially going to lose by making this such a good deal? And then they said, right, well, we don't exactly know. And then they said, well, you have to come up with a number or we're not doing it. And then this is the number they came up with. They're like, this is the max we're going to potentially lose. And then some guy was like, all right, that's reasonable, sign off on it. That's anyway, that's how I see it going down in my head. But I don't have any sales experience or anything.
Yeah, I mean, I get why people don't like caps, but you have to look at it as progress. Like, you can't just look at the world and be like, I want to go from where we are now to perfection tomorrow. Like, this is definitely a step in the right direction for everybody. And I just can't be mad at a company for trying to make money. That is their job. They have to do that. They have like a moral obligation to do that. And them doing that is important to them continuing to make great games over the years. So I'm just not going to get mad at a company for trying to make money. It's I don't really don't view it as an unethical thing at all. In fact, they have to. It's only ethical for them to do that.
I would rather them have the package exist with a cap than have it not exist at all, right? So
Which is
like
what
whatever they got to do. Yeah, which is perfect. So, whatever they got to do to get the higher ups to approve them doing this sort of thing sounds awesome.
Yeah. And also, I mean, there's just a lot of hype going into the Masters Tour for Vegas itself. They're showing off like, it's going to be up to $500,000 for this Open, which is like, okay, that's like kind of hard to ignore at this point. Definitely one, like, if not just the biggest raw Open we've ever had in Hearthstone. Or not, like, it's open in the sense that you qualify for it and you get an invitation, but you get what I mean. It's going to be in the Link Hotel, and they're talking about like poolside gatherings where Zalay can flex on all the single ladies out there. It's going to be really fun, and I'm sure we're going to put a lot of good content. We should just do an Omnistone podcast at the poolside gathering. What do you guys think?
Heck yeah, that sounds amazing.
Are you going to Vegas, Firebat?
I'm not going to Vegas. Yeah, I have a lot of trips coming up, so like that would have been another one in June, and I kind of needed to just take a break from all the traveling. I got to do like family vacation sort of stuff and whatnot, and that is already really a pain because the Masters system does not allow for any rescheduling under any circumstances and generates the schedule randomly. So my matches are in really inconvenient times for flights, unfortunately. So I'm already taking tons of extra vacation days to work around the GM schedule and how they chose to operate it. So, I just couldn't fit it in my schedule to go to Vegas.
Zalay, I know you're local to Vegas, so are you
such a godsend to have like a big local Hearthstone tournament in Vegas. I love competing. I love Hearthstone tournaments. And I hate traveling. So like this year has been just the best with the GM system where I can compete from home. And now this huge event in Vegas, my hometown, don't have to go anywhere. It's just, I'm so happy. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
From the one guy in GM that appreciates the Vegas location, I guess, the most. All right. So yeah, make sure you guys check it out. It's going to be next weekend. Wow. I fly out Wednesday. It's going to be great. Speaking of other Hearthstone events happening, we had the Hearthstone Mech Invitational, which featured 4 regions, but mainly centered around the North American team, based around Disguised Toast and Crip, and 2 non-Hearthstone experts. Or, I mean, it depends on how you interpret it. But in terms of the people who you normally see on a Hearthstone broadcast, they had Toast and Choco Bars, and then they had Bunny Fufu, a former LCS player, go with Crip. And so that was a very interesting invitational, to say the least. I think, did you guys get a chance to watch it at all? Firebat or Zalay?
I turned it off. I don't know. It was kind of weird and awkward. There were a bunch of players in a room trying to compete against each other, and there were no casters or announcers or anything, and they expected the players to commentate on their games while against each other, and they chose to whisper amongst themselves instead because they didn't want to reveal information. So it's just awkward players whispering to each other. The Bunny Fufu guy clearly had never played the game his entire life. So I don't know. For me, I got disengaged very quickly and turned it off.
Gotcha. Zalay, I'm guessing based on your reaction, you didn't get to see much of it?
It's just not the kind of content I personally am looking for. Like, I get that a lot of people, love those players and very invested in whatever they're doing. Not me personally, like, there's only so many hours in a day, and you can't watch everything that you want to watch, right?
Yeah. No,
you got to make some choices.
Well, I got invited to cast the last series, which was a best of 3, and it ended up being a total of about 13 minutes of game time. So I ended up showing up and casting with Heatwave, and it was really it was really strange, to say the least. I think the best way to summarize this, because we won't spend too much time, is that people who always say, like, oh, when we listen to the player comms at Trinity series, why do we even have casters, right? That was one of the fun like half jokes that people were like throwing out in chat. And I think this invitational shows what happens if we don't, which is like there's a lot of awkward gaps. It doesn't feel like the broadcast has a lot of flow to it. And more importantly, it's just like, the players felt very awkward too, because sometimes they don't want to really talk. So there's just not really anything happening. So, this is sort of a pat on ourselves back, because I know Firebat and Zalay have casted, but casters are important to a broadcast, let alone, I know you guys want to sap us from time to time, and rightfully so, but every now and then, just get a good reminder that we're there for a reason.
Hire casters.
Hire pay the casters, Blizzard.
There we go.
Signed the casters.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to our main topic. And talk about the Rise of the Mechs event. So this is the buffs. There are 18 cards, 2 from each class in Boomsday Project, as well as the Golden Snip Snap, which is given away for free. And I know, Firebat, you are a huge fan of Snip Snap.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely insane. Just on raw stats alone, it has like tons of stats, and then we combine that with the magnetic application. Any card with good stats and magnetic is insane. And then you combine that with also Echo, and it's absurd. The card is so flexible and powerful. I think against aggro, often it is insane as just a 3-drop because it's overstatted. And it's insane being able to magnetize on your 1-drops against aggro, particularly in Bomb Warrior or Control Warrior. If you ever go Eternium Rover into Snip Snap on your Eternium Rover, you have won the game against aggro, which is absurd. And then on top of that, it's good against control. On turn 6, you just play it and it's Karen. You just magnetize it onto itself, and you have played a Karen in a control mirror that's also good against aggro in other circumstances. And wait, there's more. Let's say you already have a 6-drop that's good. Save it till turn 9. Now you've played a super Karen. So, like, it's got so much versatility. Play Dr. Boom. Sometimes they ignore your Boombots because they don't want to take the immediate damage of the Boombots. Magnetize it onto each one of your Boombots and hit them in the face for a ton. Now you've created a board state that's really, really, really hard for them to clear and isn't vulnerable to standard AoE clears. They need 2 AoE clears now. So I think the card's insane. I think it's actually offensive that not more people brought it to GM. It blows my mind that people were like, nah, that card's not good enough. I'm not putting it in my deck. Looking at the GM deck list, I think almost everyone playing any decks with mechs in it should have that card in their deck.
And how many people are playing it outside of you and a couple of your practice group?
Me, Zalay, and Purple are all playing it, but I didn't even practice with Zalay. I just practiced with Purple. And then Frozen's playing it in Druid. So, I mean, like, there's some other cases of it popping around. And I only really looked closely at the Americas deck list, but it's just super underrepresented. And I think you can honestly make a case for it in almost every deck. Any deck that blends mechs, you can definitely play it in that deck.
I'm 100% with Firebat. He's just taking the words out of my mouth. They're already in my next Omni/ video, which I think hasn't been released yet. But, it's listed in there under underrated cards. Snip Snap, really good. Like you said, pretty much any mech deck you want it in there. The card's just good. I look at it and it's like, yep, playing that.
All the time. Good. It's insane.
Let's do it.
It's good on turn 3, turn 6, and turn 9. It's all incredible on.
Well, but also the intermediate turns. What about on turn 10? You go Eternium Rover, triple magnetized as Rush from your Dr. Boom, obviously. What do you do against that?
They're dead. Like,
yeah, one thing that I know that not only you, but I was hanging out with Gallon today because Gallon's going to be casting the Grandmasters this weekend in place of Derek Brown for the Europe region. So good luck to him and Honorable. They were just saying, like, the biggest buff wasn't the class cards from the Boomsday Project. The biggest buff was Snip Snap to just Warrior, because not only is it good in the deck list, but there's how many times have you gotten it off of like an Omega Assembly or like a delivery drone, and then like Snip Snap comes into play and it's like, wow, this card's just beyond bonkers. When Dr. Boom Mad Genius comes online, or even without it, it's still just really good.
Mm-hmm.
So, just Warrior inheriting all of this, and it's like Warrior got a big giant shot in the arm because it was slowly tapering off. More and more people were trying to like outfit decks to beat it over the course of a month. And now it's like, is Warrior just back in full force being like one of the top dogs of the meta, you guys think?
I mean, Warrior's been a top dog the entire time.
Or sorry, the top dog.
I think Warrior with the right text is the top dog, but the issue is there's a lot of garbage decks people can play that can beat Warrior if Warrior is not ready for them, and you only get to bring 3 deck lists and Specialist. Warrior can lose to Aggro Rogue if you don't have the weapon removal. Warrior can lose to weird mech hunter or mech paladin decks if you don't have the silence. Warrior can lose to mage if you don't have the BGH and the super colliders. So like and warrior can lose to hunter if you don't have enough aggressive bomb stuff in your deck. So there's like so many different avenues of attacking the warrior that it can't be prepared for all of them. So you kind of just have to pick which things you think your opponent's going to target it with and tech for those. And if you guess right, you probably win. If you guess wrong, you're going to have a harder time.
I saw the respect coming out of your deck list, Firebat, is like 2 Spellbreakers and Iron Beak Owl.
Well,
right? I was
in
like,
my
wow,
mind,
he really hates the mechs.
I verse PNC and I verse Eddie. Eddie's brought Warrior every single week, so I assumed he's probably going to bring Warrior again. So I have main deck a bunch of greedy stuff, because greedy stuff does well versus the Warrior Mirror. It does well versus the mid-range hunters because they go actually really slow because their deck's just a pile or removal. And it does really well versus the Shark Rogues, actually, because Shark Rogues don't really have that much offensive power and they don't try to kill you that much. So you can get away with playing greedier stuff in your deck. So since that was my expected metagame, I thought I could get away with just playing greedy Warrior and hope to be able to counter Eddie like that. And he brought Warrior, and I think I can win that matchup. But I thought PNC would bring Mech Hunter again, because last time that Warrior was the predicted thing that everyone is going to play, PNC brought Mech Hunter. He lost, he went 0-2 with it, but I thought that was just because of his misplays, and he would still believe that it's the deck. But he has changed his opinion since then and now believes Mage is the deck. So when I had to choose, do I want to counter garbage mech decks, thinking PNC will bring that, or do I want to target Mage with my third deck, thinking PNC will bring that? And I chose wrong. He has the Mage, so that's going to be brutal. So, sometimes you lose, sometimes you bring rock and they have paper.
Zoe, how do you feel about your matchups? And you can even talk about your deck too this week.
GM these last couple weeks has been a little rough for me. Last week I brought Rogue and both my opponents brought Warrior. Kind of yikes. This week I brought Warrior. Both my opponents brought Mage. Again, kind of yikes. They have main deck double weapon destruction tech. It's just, I wake up, I look at deck lists, and I just shake my head in frustration. God, there's a bit of a rock, paper, scissors element to any kind of competitive strategy game where there's a number of different approaches you can take. And I am just getting obliterated in rock, paper, scissors recently. I don't know how much of that is my opponents accurately predicting me and me failing to be unpredictable, and how much of it's getting unlucky. It's tough to figure out without reading their minds. But I definitely know I am losing, and hard, and it feels bad. But I have Snip Snap in my deck, so I feel good about that.
Yes.
That's right, man. Just going to chop through the competition.
Yeah. No, I think your list is good and stuff. It's just, the element of guessing what your opponent's going to do is pretty impossible.
Yeah, well, what's interesting that you brought up PNC, Firebat, but PNC just went on a hybrid Mana Cyclone Summoner Mage combination. He just put straight up Power of Creation in his deck list, I believe.
He's main decking all of the anti-warrior decks. So somehow he just really thought his opponents were going to play warrior, and one of his opponents is not playing warrior, and he's going to lose. And then I'm playing warrior, and he's going to beat me. So, that's part of the game, especially if you want to design your deck that freaking anti-one thing. You're going to be in spots where you could potentially just win off matchups or lose off matchups. I don't know. I try and build my decks in a spot where I feel like I have wiggle room to outplay people as much as I can while also targeting things. But I think PNC's deck is as hard counter to Warrior as you possibly can. I think he took Sandbinder out, which I think is a mistake because he lowered the consistency a lot. So I think if I win, it's because he gets a dead draw where he doesn't draw the Giants because he doesn't have Sandbinder. He doesn't draw the Cyclones and sits there with junk in his hand, and I just rush him down. So I don't know. I think he might have went actually overboard on teching to beat Warrior, and that might allow me to beat him with Warrior because he cut some of the core cards to tech for Warrior harder.
Let me jump in here and just say, I think Power Creation's maybe not the best choice, even if you are trying to hard tech for Warrior. I think even in that circumstance, it has a lot of issues with Discover is weighted to hit class cards more often, and the Mage class has a bunch of 6-mana 3/3s. I think Meteorologist and something that deals a bunch of damage to minions if you played an Elemental last turn. So it just, on average, you hit some really yucky stuff. And one of the main ways you lose to Warrior is them curving out early and pushing some minion chip damage, and then you drawing bombs later. And Power of Creation is so slow, it doesn't really fix that problem. So it's slow, it plays into how you lose, and it's just kind of a really quite a low-powered card. It also allows you to Yeah, it's got a bunch of issues. I think it's really not the best way to go about beating Warrior.
Wow.
with that
He
card.
also has Twilight Drakes.
Those are
and
the best way.
Also has Astromancers. Like
That's good.
Every card you could possibly think of that beats Warrior is in his deck, except he cut Sandbinders and card draw.
Well,
So
you
it's
want
like-
that.
Yeah,
You
it's
want
like,
that
well, maybe I can win. He's cutting the card draw. So,
I guess the
don't know.
theory is he cut card draw because he's just curving out. So why draw cards if you just play your 4-drop on 4, 5-drop on 5?
Because
game.
Caligos too to complete the curve. So
oh, he's got 10 drops in there. So I mean, the game's not going to turn 10. If I win, the game's going to be decided way before turn 10. Either I'm going to kill him on turn 8 or 9, or he's going to stabilize, and then I can concede at that point because his hand is so much gas. It's
No. Bomb outs. You got this, Firebat. 3 bombs on top, turn 10.
we'll do the math.
My game plan is coin 3/3 into Snip Snap.
Yeah.
And take him down because Snip Snap's broken. Magnetize things, hit him in the face.
I was given your deck to play today in testing, and that's how I won every game with your deck. I coined Clockwork Goblin into Snip Snap, and I
Dude,
just never
it's broken as hell. It's so strong. Yeah, I don't know how.
It just doesn't get answered.
Yeah, what matchups did you play? I'm interested.
We played the Eddie. We played both. Your Eddie versus, and then also.
Oh, okay. Did you win versus PNC?
Yeah, we played only one game though, but because we ran out of time because we had stuff to do. But
that's all I gotta play, man.
Yeah,
One series.
It was exactly what you're talking about because he has like the half mana cycling package, which felt like his hand had some like stall, but he had no like substance behind the stall, and because like his hand was like heavy cost stuff. So he couldn't squeeze in really efficient plays. So like he just got stuck holding random cards, and it was like okay. And then I just pushed too much damage, and I got a couple bombs off him.
I have been terrible at the rock paper scissors aspect of this league the whole way through. Almost every week I've had one unwinnable matchup, if not 2, and somehow I've won half my games.
Yeah, it's not going to happen this week again. You're going to be 4-4 at the end of week 4.
I believe it's pretty likely for me to be able to be 4-4 at the end of it. Yeah, but. God, if I could nail these rock, paper, scissors just 1 week, I know I'd 2-0. Like my deck building, I feel like has been pretty good. Like I feel like I'm doing the other parts right. It's just I'm not getting the matchups right. I got to somehow figure out what people are going to play ahead of time. And it's
figuring us out just every time feels terrible.
Yeah, we got to. Well, I think we're at a disadvantage. We play test with large groups of people, or at least I do. And someone's talking, man. I'm getting suspicious. I'm getting paranoid. I'm getting paranoid.
There's a rat.
I think accidentally maybe they're just saying something, right? Like maybe someone's just like saying, "Oh, I was play testing this with this guy," and then people are picking up about it. Maybe they're just generally talking about what they've been doing in the day or something. And there's like some accidental leakage happening when you play test with lots of people. But my favorite part about the competitive scene is the community aspect of practicing decks in large groups. I think that's really fun, and you get a lot of interesting conversation, and you hang out with people, and it's cool. So I'd hate to lose that to try and keep the secrecy,
Okay. Yeah. No, I agree.
But people talk, just not intentionally trying to leak your deck or anything. People just say words, and other people hear those words, and then they talk to people they know.
Somebody's friends with somebody, the right word in the wrong ear.
Or maybe they're like sharing their like match history off Deck Tracker with other people, and then people just see that, and I don't know. There's lots of ways for people.
There's a lot of ways, but I have been wrong on the decks almost every single week.
Yeah, just getting crushed. I'm also I have 7 game wins, 8 game losses, and that translates to a 2-4 match record, which just feels terrible. Like I'm stacking my wins in the 2-1s and the 2-0s. It's just, it's not good. It's not good.
Yeah.
Well, it's about halfway through, and the good news is that you guys, well, at least I know Firebat is still very much in contention for playoffs, and I think so.
I'm in contention too, Frodan. I just have to win a lot.
I think, you're definitely still in contention. You're only, I think, third place in your group is actually only 1 win better than you.
Yeah, I have insane tie breaks because I keep losing the wrong games and winning the wrong games.
Yeah.
First place in my group is only like 1 win higher than me, or 2 wins higher.
I think Eddie's 5-1.
I think he's 6. He's played 6 and he's won 4. I think.
Oh, is he 4-2?
He's 4. Why do they not put it as win loss? It's so confusing. But yeah, he's 4-2. So, and I am 3-3, and he's in first. So first, second, and third are all 4-2 in my group. Everyone is basically tied.
That's cool. Because it makes it dramatic, right? In terms of like the win-loss swings. But then like over in the Lay's division, we have Monsanto at 6-0.
And then
it's going to be difficult to beat.
Well, yeah, Monsanto's at 6-0, and I think there's like 4-2 and 4-2 behind him. So like Zale's what? You're 3-3 or are you 2-4?
I'm 2-4.
Okay. So I mean you're still definitely in position. You could still definitely get there.
Yeah, he can definitely get there. It's not completely over. In fact, I mean, even Patra, if she wins out right now, because I think Patra's still looking for her first debut, but if she wins out, she'll have a very good chance to make playoffs. But that's just very difficult, right? Given that the field, as you guys can see, is very, very hard to beat. But this kind of ends our impromptu segment on the Grandmasters, I guess. We weren't really planning going this in depth. What we wanted to do was talk about the metagame after the first week of buffs, or the first couple of days. So what I did was I scoured the internet for each of the classes, some of their best performing decks on ladder. And then we just kind of sound the board, basically go around Firebat and Zalay and ask them if they think that this deck is legit, or if they give any feedback, maybe change 1-2 cards, or just say this deck is just, a complete gimmick because it was a pocket meta choice, or they're just trolling us. So I'll start off with Druid. This one, shout out to, again, Neon, Ahirun, Hearthstone Top Decks, and HearthstoneDecks.net as just being our sources. So Druid playing a token variant with mechs. This is a list that doesn't have Snip Snap because it was right before the mech event came out, but I couldn't find anybody that posted a consistently top deck list since then. However, Frozen did bring a token Druid with Snip Snap. So this is a little bit of a sleeper deck, if you will. I kind of want to go to Firebat since I know that you mentioned it with mechs in Druid with token style. What do you think about that deck?
Well, it puts up really good numbers in China. And everyone in APAC is terrified of Token Druid. Everyone in APAC has Double Fan of Knives, Mossy Horror in their rogue sideboard, and other weird garbage that is just like... One guy had double Mossy Horror, double MC Tech Fan in his sideboard. Like, everyone is just freaking terrified in APAC of Token Druid. And there's always... I think Token Druid's got to be the worst win rate deck ever brought in APAC. But that's not because the deck's bad, but because everyone in APEC just uses their third deck to counter Token Druid for some reason. So it's garnered a lot of respect. Like, everyone really respects it in that region for sure. It definitely got more powerful because Snip Snap's a thing. But
you're not sold?
I still think it's probably tier 2. I don't think it really holds a candle to Mage or Warrior or Rogue. I think Rogue with backstabs and stuff can just out-tempo it and get on the board better. I think Mage with the freezes can slow it down enough to be able to do their power turns, especially if they're on Doomsayer. And I think Warrior just absolutely trounces it no matter how hard you tech for the Warrior matchup. The Warrior just obliterates it. So I think when you're like looking at that and you're like, well, I do kind of okay versus Mage and I do kind of okay versus Rogue, but if they drop backstab, I'm in a kind of a bad spot. You're left with like, well, I do good versus Hunter. And I don't think that's a good enough spot you want to be in the metagame. Hunter, although, was the #1 most popular deck on ladder for the last week or so. So that's why I think we can see it having success here, is because Hunters were popular and it beats Hunter. But it doesn't do so great against the big three. And I think that's where it's going to find, it's not going to be a lasting factor.
Okay. Zlay, do you have any comments before I kind of jump in here?
You called Token Druid a sleeper deck, and I'm gonna kind of keep sleeping on it, at least in like the GM format. It's okay on ladder, but if you're gonna play it in GM or in Specialist, you run into issues of it. The deck only does one thing. It's a one-trick pony. It goes wide and it buffs its stuff, and that doesn't work well when your opponent has a potential sideboard to just bring in a bunch of hate cards and beat the heck out of you. So. And like Firebat said, even on ladder, it's just kind of naturally not quite strong enough to beat the AoE out there and the tempo tools like Backstab SI.
Yeah, that's fair.
It's puzzling to me that it sees as much play as it does. But the mech stuff is some cool new innovation. You put some Snip Snap in there, probably net deck Frozen's list, and it's definitely like a solid okay deck. You can definitely get the legend or even get the high legend with it, but it's not ever my first pick for the powerful meta breaker or anything. It's more of just a niche role player. If it's your style of deck, you enjoy it, God bless, go for it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good summary of it. I think Token Druid would see a lot more play in conquest formats. I don't think it's anything close to what you want in Specialist because it's not versatile enough. It's exactly what Zlay said. It's a one-trick pony in terms of its play style. However, I will say that it's a lot better versus Warrior than you might think because they can't rely on Dynamatic as much when they're going for the mech package. So my recommendation for this first deck list is to take out things like Mark of the Loa, take out Whispering Woods, even though you might feel like it's really important. Put in things like Explodinator and War Gear, like what Frozen's doing, and Snip Snap, of course. And you'd be surprised how much vertical depth it can build in terms of just like it stacks like a lot of power on one target. It's like, wow, I'm preparing my removal all for just like a wide board, and you can really surprise some people. So that's why I call it a sleeper, because I feel like the mass populace overrate Token Druid, but I feel like the top level players or like the high level players underrate a little bit of what it really can do. And particularly, I do find it's very funny because, you know, one ironic thing about mechs being popular is that Warrior does get buffed from it, but then some of their best removal, like Dynamatic, get worse, which is something to evaluate as you go through all these deck lists.
Right.
Hunter bringing a beast packet.
Wait, sorry. We gotta keep Whispering Woods in the deck, man. We can't advise people to cut that card from. I'm sorry, like we cannot advise. Like Frozen did it because he's looking at like a very pocket meta in a sort of in the GM league, but that's the best card in the deck in the widest range of matchups. Please, nobody on ladder cut Whispering Woods from Token Druid. That's the main card of the deck. You want to. Sorry.
The mech package is good, but not That's you don't cut.
You gotta keep it.
Don't cut. You cut the bad cards, not the good ones. That's
okay.
Yeah. Here we go. I'm sorry. I had to say something.
Go ahead. I don't mind. I mean, look, I played with the deck today a lot too in testing. I felt like I didn't really miss Whispering Woods at all. I was still going really wide regardless of it. And more importantly, it's like when people are expecting you to go wide, they're like saving their removal and they're playing a little bit too slow to try and like get big tempo swing against Token Druid. And you sometimes just get there anyways because you're able to just stack the mech advantages little by little. So I didn't find myself missing Whispering Woods, and I was getting a pretty good win rate with it. But I mean, that universally you're probably right, because I was only playing against Mage, and I was only playing against Warrior, and I was only playing against like the decks that was in that pocket meta. So it's a really good observation there, Firebat. As for Hunter, they have primarily beasts and mech / bomb / death rattle variants of it. Interesting enough, I haven't actually ran into like any legitimate necromechanic builds, even though everyone was really hyped about it. Have you guys encountered anything like that for since the Rise of the Mechs event?
Bomb Hunter plays necromechanic now. Costs 4. They play it as just a 3/6, and then they play bomb cards and use it to trigger their bombs twice to do more damage. So that's the only deck I've seen it having great success in. I've tried it personally in Death Rattle Hunter. It seems underwhelming.
Yeah, that was my reaction too. Like even the list that this player used to climb the top legend with Bomb Hunter didn't even include it. That's on it. Of course, this is only one player's choice, and it's very smart font. I can't read who actually played it to top legend. But Zlay, any thoughts on like the state of Hunter or maybe even the buffs that we're
I think I agree about I don't have anything to add on the necromechanic card. Seems fine. I just want to talk about this Hunter list we're looking at on screen. I noticed it has 2 Hunger Crabs. This guy has seen enough Shaman in his day. He's pissed.
Yeah.
2 Hungry Crabs. Man, he's gonna get those Shaman. He doesn't care what the cost. I don't know.
Yeah, that's interesting. I actually I pulled these deck lists like a little bit right before the show, and there were a lot of them. So I guess I skimmed really quickly over the Hungry Crab.
Well, it has synergy with
the
his own deck.
Shimmerfly, right?
He's got the Hench Clan Hogsteed in there, so he makes his own 1/1 Murlocs, and then he eats them. Just get him with that 1/2 punch. Eat your own minions.
There you go.
Killing your own minions isn't great. There's no Zul'jin in this deck.
Yeah, that doesn't seem smart.
He's got
he
high
must
mains.
a lot of Shaman.
Yeah, the high mains are good versus Warrior and stuff, but if you don't have Zul'jin, you just lose versus Warrior still. Like, I guess he's trying to like really hit him hard with pressure with the high mains, but I think that'll work sometimes. But I think more often than not, having Zul'jin really helps a lot of matchups.
Yeah.
Even the fast ones like Rogue and like
yes.
It's how you win
Rogue,
against
especially right now.
Zul'jin. That's the whole plan.
Yeah, that's how you beat Rogue. Rogue right now, with the sharks and stuff, will outvalue you. They'll keep up even with tempo on you or so, and they'll have like a bunch of created by garbage that they'll be able to pull ahead with, and then you'll run out of cards as the hunter, and they'll still have stuff. But then you play Zul'jin, and it's like all their stuff doesn't matter because you refill your hand and kill all their stuff and generate a bunch of stuff. and you actually win. Rogue's not very aggressive anymore, unless they're playing the Raiding Party Waggle Pick Rogue, but that's pretty dead. If you look at like the GM deck lists and HS Replay and stuff like that, pretty much everybody's on some Shark variant.
You know, it's the same discussion we just had about Druid. You don't cut the good cards. You keep your Egyptian God cards. Whispering Woods in, Zul'jin in. Cut something bad, please.
Yeah, it's cool to play Hungry Crabs, and I think his win rate is going up because he's playing the Hungry Crabs and he's versing Shamans. And like maybe you can take a good variation of mid-range Hunter, put in some Hungry Crabs and some Hench Clan Hogsteeds, but maybe keep the Zul'jin, and you'll do even better than this guy.
For it.
Yeah. So, you know.
There's no way Life Drinker's critical to your win rate in the way that Zul'jin is. None.
Right. It's just the cards just are way not even comparable in the amount of impact that they can cause in a specific matchup. Like,
yeah, I would say that in general the list seems a lot more aggressive because they're not playing like Unleash the Beast and stuff like that too. So you probably have to put in a little bit more than just Zul'jin into this deck to really make it go over the top.
It's a good point.
You could probably play one Unleash the Beast and Zul'jin.
Yep, there you go.
You're good.
There you go. You're set. You got the life.
I don't believe that the aggressive plan of just go all face, play on curve, play Life Drinker, play Tundrino, charging him with high main is going to work super consistently against a lot of the decks that exist.
I feel like I saw Sunflash like climb to top 10 legend with that though, like the other day. But I mean, I think it's exactly what you're saying though. It's just like a small pocket meta because they read what's going on and they're trying to just be more aggressive in that slot because they see what other people are doing. Speaking of Pocket, Luna's Pocket Galaxy making an appearance in what is called a big freeze mage. I'm not exactly sure how to interpret it, but I saw some people posting this list and getting to top 100. I saw Korra hit legend with it, so it caught my attention. So obviously on the far right you have like the Conjurer's like version of like a Pocket Galaxy inspired deck, and then you have like a freeze mage oriented, which is like draw a bunch, freeze a bunch, burn them a bunch. Do you have any thoughts on it, or have you guys encountered it on ladder yet?
I love this stuff. I'm so glad Freeze Mage is back. You know, it's probably not the greatest deck out there, but it's very much passable, and I love it. I really enjoy this kind of play style and miss that it was missing. Ray of Frost is such a huge tool in Freeze Mage. Obviously, the Mountain Giant plus Conjurer's Calling package, you just can't cut that from a Mage deck. Like, if you like winning games, you're going to probably do that. But it's so cool that this exists, and I don't think it's like oppressively powerful or anything. I was playing Cyclone Mage with Luna's Pocket Galaxy today before this, and I was having an absolutely great time just doing all sorts of filthy nonsense. You know, if you play Luna's Pocket Galaxy and then you play Luna's later on, all of a sudden you're plopping down a bunch of 0-mana Sea Giant draw cards, 0-mana Mountain Giant draw cards, 0-mana Sea Giant draw card. Like, it's very silly.
It's so gross.
It's absolutely filthy. It's delightful.
Gotcha. Firebat?
Yeah, I think that there's potential for Luna's Pocket Galaxy to be good. I think I like the second deck a lot better than the first deck, mainly because it has Giant Conj still. It just seems like if you're playing a mage deck with card draw, Giant Conj is pretty good. You know, you have all the package that supports it already. You have the freezes, you have the stall with the Doomsayer, and you have the card draw. And it also synergizes with the Luna's Pocket Galaxy, so I really like the second list. I know the first list there was actually like on Twitter like an hour after the buffs, because I remember going onto Zalay's stream and actually playing this exact mage list in the middle with him on stream. So,
okay. Gotcha.
So that one was a little bit
very
earlier.
unrefined.
And I think the second one is more refined. So I think if you're going to pick one of the two, probably lean towards the second one. Is the second one, was that So Legit?
I think so, yeah.
All right. He plays Freeze Mage he played Freeze Mage before the buffs. Yeah. So he was actually experimenting and playing with this before the buffs. And he believes it's like actually just legit tier 1. So I don't know. I'm not convinced yet because I love Cyclone Mage so much. And it feels insane not to be playing the Cyclones because I feel like they really shore up your bad matchups and allow you to do unexpected things, which I think has a lot of value. If you can do unexpected things at not too much of a cost, that's awesome because being unpredictable is really powerful in Hearthstone. But it usually costs a lot to be unpredictable. Like you have to play cards like Burgle or whatnot. Whereas Mana Cyclone allows you to do it for free. So I'm not completely sold, but no, I definitely think it's moving in a powerful direction. A lot of players are really sold and convinced that Luna's Pocket Galaxy is the future. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Yeah, it definitely has the potential. I think of the unique decks on this list here, I think this one has the most potential. But I definitely think you want to play Mountain Giant Conjuring because those are the good cards, and we got to stop cutting those.
Stop cutting the good
It synergizes with our whole deck.
It's the most deck has bad cards. Don't cut the good ones. Cut the bad ones.
Our entire deck synergizes with it, and then we cut it from this list in the middle.
It wins you the. It's you know, Giant on 4, Khadgar Conjuring on 5. Done.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's no Khadgar in either of these.
I think cutting Khadgar is fine, but yeah, I mean, if you play card draw and freezes, you play Giant Conj. There's the best thing you can do in Mage, and the best way to support it is card draw and freezes. All right, you already have it. It's a package.
All right, so that's the first 3 classes. People are wondering if there's any other, if we're going to do other lists, and we're going to do all 9. So coming up for Paladin, we have a Mech Paladin that hit number 12 legend by the Cantaloupe.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, do we have it? Yeah, we do. Sorry, it was ordered Rogue first, and then for Priest we have well, this is not the right list. It's actually, that looks like a wild deck list with Barnes in it.
That looks powerful. I'd have a hard time beating that with my standard
deck up on standard.
Yeah,
can't beat Obsidian Statue Barnes or
number 1 legend. Let's go.
We have a Holy Wrath Paladin, and then we have just a straight up, Tempo Rogue or Shark Rogue, Water Rogue, Burgle Rogue, whatever you want to call it. Lackey Rogue. Just good cards, Rogue. Do you guys want to make any comments outside of the fact that obviously we have the wrong Priest list up here?
Well, the Paladin deck, Strifecrow is bringing a variant of the Paladin deck to the GM League, and me and Ike and Pavel were heavily testing Paladin for like 10 hours, and we even like messaged the Cantaloupe on Twitter and like requested like the stats from his deck and stuff like that, and his opinion on it and whatnot, and he said it feels like a slightly worse Mech Hunter. But we didn't give up there. We tried to refine it and try and make it better. But it seems really tough. Paladin has a few good matchups, so definitely you can make it never lose to Warrior, which is appealing. The issue I find with Paladin is if Mage freezes your board a lot, it really does not do a whole lot except sit there and watch Mage play the game. So it's pretty much impossible to not make it vulnerable to Mage's freezes. But it has good matchups against Warrior. It's pretty okay versus Rogue if they're running the ladder lists, because the ladder lists run generally not 2 saps. But holy smokes, does it feel bad to get sapped in this deck list. Like, there is not a lot you can do to avoid getting sapped, and Rogue exists. And if this becomes popular, 2 saps will become mainstream. The Coppertail Impostor felt awesome against Rogue. That card's sweet. And yeah, I don't know about these prismatic lenses and some of the other stuff, though.
I want to mention the whole Magnetized plan has real issues with the Ray of Frost card. It's extremely powerful. They're trying to make one big minion. You freeze it for 2 turns for 2 mana. It's like, yikes. Big yikes. Yeah.
I think the deck's powerful. I really do. I just think that this is not the meta for it because, like Zlay's saying there, Ray of Frost exists, Mage is popular, and Rogue exists. Rogue has sap, Rogue is popular. But it really lines up quite well versus Hunters. It really lines up really well versus Warriors. So it does have a pocket metagame where it finds success. But if Rogue and Mage are something you're worried about, this deck feels really sketchy. And I think the worst card in the deck is the Glowstone Technician. And I think one of the number 1 cards... Yeah,
so?
It's too slow. It's way too slow.
But it gives you an alternative game plan. Like, you don't have to curve out. If you open with Glowstone Technician, all of a sudden you're playing like this delayed Kelestev plan, and then you save everything. And every
curve out with this deck, you're dead.
Well,
you have no board comeback mechanics. You have no board mechanics, so you have to curve out. So then it's just naturally bad in your deck. Because unless you're holding your 1-drops and just chilling and waiting, and then play Glowstone Technique, and then you're like, I'll just take back the board all of a sudden. And then you're like, no, you won't. I'm going to kill you. And then you die.
Well, so you Crystology on 1, you Galv on 2, you Galv again on 3, probably. Is the Glowstone Tech a mech? Can we play it on 4?
No, you have to wait till 5. It just doesn't happen.
Okay, so we play it on 5, or we coin it out on 4, rather. And then on 5, we play all these super cheap, super buffed mechs. They're all magnetized. We Lightforge Blessing, clear their big minion, full heal, checkmate, Firebat. There's your comeback mechanic.
So
you just need 17 card combo.
It actually has happened. I played a decent amount of Mech Paladin as well. believe it or not. And it's like one of those things where you just have to witness it a couple times, and you're like, oh my gosh, this is disgusting.
So one of the cool stats you can do with mech decks on Deck Tracker and things like that is when you upload your stats, there's a stat called damage done. And you can kind of see how often your minions stick on the board for magnetize, which can be pretty important when you're trying to figure out, all right, how does my deck function against this deck? Which minions can actually stick and whatnot? And one of the cool things about this deck is Galvanizer did like 8,000 damage in 10 hours. So that thing sticks every time and gets magnetized and messes people up. So that part of the deck is cool. The other problem, some of the problems, though, is a lot of the cards dealt like 0 damage and never stuck. And so I don't know.
Wait, is that 8,000 damage across all the games? It's like,
yeah.
Or were you just exaggerating for dramatic?
I don't have the stats pulled up right now, but it was like a really big number.
Okay.
Here,
it was the total damage over all the games.
The total damage over all the games for the whole day when we were trying things in Mech Paladin.
Oh,
so like the number one way to win is to play Galvanizer on 2, magnetize things to it, and it does damage.
But the Glowstone Technician gives you an alternative to that, like where you can just like start playing power loaded turns afterwards. If the matchup slows down enough. But it's also like you don't. It's kind of like a fallacy to like try to save it for like 4 or 5 minions or more. You can also just have it buff 2 minions, and it's still like a dramatic tempo swing, in my opinion.
It's a 5 mana 3/4. It did 87 damage. It never stuck. There's no way a stat of showing like what cards it buffed, but in my experience, you can't hold on to all your mechs the whole game. You have to play as a tempo deck in a deck with no comeback. But we added in, I think one of the best cards to add into this deck that you should definitely do is Shrink Ray. Shrink Ray is absurd. Shrink Ray does, for some reason, people think in their mind, Shrink Ray removes the Kangor's buff and the comeback is 1/1s. That's just not true. When you Shrink Ray stuff and then you Kangors it, it comes back full stats. Kangors only keeps the magnetic buffs, not all buffs. So it does not keep the effect of the Shrink Ray. And Shrink Ray allows you to like go Mechano Egg, Shrink Ray their stuff, trade, and it allows you to potentially buy time to set up for these ridiculous Glowstone Technician turns. But I don't know. I think that card is one of the worst aspects of the deck, and the best aspect of the entire deck is Crystology into Galvanizer.
Who did Shrifecrow play this week? Wow. Now I'm cheering for Shrifecrow more because he brought this Mech Paladin.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, the whole Mechano Egg into Shrink Ray thing's just powerful. You know, you play a Mechano Egg, nobody ever wants to sink 16,000 damage into it, and then you Shrink Ray and you're head on board.
The best cards for getting damage in with the deck are just Mechano Egg and Galvanizer. The best cards for drawn win rate are Crystology and Galvanizer.
The damage stat's probably misleading, right? Like if you magnetize something onto a
it doesn't get any
Galvanizer, the thing that you're magnetizing counts as doing 0 damage, and the Galvanizer gets credit for all of it. So what you're seeing is a heavy bias for there's high damage stats on things that you typically magnetize onto.
Well, typically magnetizing onto is good. That's what you want. Is you want to successfully magnetize. That's the number one goal. The 2 mana 1/5 is actually not very good. That thing never sticks.
Okay.
Things damage numbers are insanely low. Apparently 2 mana 1/5 never sticks, but 2 mana 1/2, the Framebot like never sticks on 2 for some reason. It just does not get magnetized onto and push a lot of damage. Whereas like the flexibility of the Galvanizer, reducing the cost of the magnetized things, makes it get magnetized to like way more often.
Yeah, in my experience playing games against decks like this, the 1/5 does stick, but because it doesn't cheat mana as much, it's just not as powerful when it does stick. Like you're just not playing as much stuff.
It just doesn't push any damage.
Cheating's good.
Yeah, so like, and it pollutes your Crystology pool. So you don't want the 1/5 in that deck because then you're less likely to go Crystology into Galvanizer. And that should be the highlight focus of your deck because that is how you get damage in every matchup all the time. There's like the pretty much premier thing to do with the deck. So I think you want to cut the 2 mana 1/5, which is that even in this deck?
No, it doesn't.
It's not. So like he already even cut that from the get-go. But yeah, that was one of the things we were testing is if that card belongs in the deck or not. Because it seems like on paper that would be good, right? But I'm fairly certain it's just bad in that deck. And Cantaloupe's success confirms that a little more, I guess.
Okay. Shrifecrow plays Amnesiac and Muzzy this week, and neither of them are playing Warrior. They're playing Hunter and Mage. So I think Shrifecrow is trying to hit the Warriors Maybe trying to hit Zalay and Firebat, but instead got other
He
decks.
doesn't even have a sideboard for Warrior. If Warrior had silences, he'd be in trouble. The deck gasses out pretty hard. I like how he included Tyrion in Strifecrow's list. Tyrion's are like really sweet versus pretty much anything because you make like big mech stuffs and then they remove it and take a bunch of damage in the process. And you just slam a Tyrion and they're like, oh crap, they're out of removal and silences.
Slam an 8/8 or a 10/10 Tyrion because the Glowstone Technician buffs it. That bad.
Sure, he cut Glowstone Technician.
I'm telling you, man, Glowstone Technician is better than you think it is. I'm taking the opposite extremity. I think it's one of the best cards in the deck. But that's just.
I think it is literally the worst card in the deck in every matchup.
All right.
I think against Warrior, it's even bad. I'd rather just put my stuff in play a turn earlier than have it be slightly bigger because it's going to get AoE cleared anyways. So and then I'd rather have more cards to reload with after things get AoE cleared. I want like Faceless against Warrior. Like copy eggs. And
yeah, actually,
or lay on hands is sick because you drop bombs, right? But you also get healing in the process, so you don't die.
Yeah,
cards like that I think are potentially better. Glowstone Technician is just so bad. It's the worst card the whole day.
Let's get off this topic and move on because we'll be yelling till our faces are blue. We have Shaman, Warlock, Warrior as our last slide here for the 3 classes. Shaman's getting a lot of action right now. The most notable deck list is probably Jombray's list, which plays like a mid-range board-centric style oriented around Thunderhead and utilizing Storm Chaser to either Bloodlust or Stormbringer the opponent down. And the deck can go very long into the game. Shudderwalk is surprisingly super powerful in this deck because it threatens the exact same thing, and it also reloads your hand, very much like Zul'jin. So the Shudderwalk like can help clear the board and also just do all these things. And then you have a Control Shaman, which plays basically just like the normal Control Shaman at the beginning of Rise of Shadows meta. And then for Warlock, Zoo Warlock, something as timeless as Hearthstone itself. And then Bomb Warrior, which we don't have to say too much more about, although they are putting in Snip Snap. And I even see this Fairy Dragon making the cut to make it much more resilient against mages, at least from when I first see it.
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty cute. I don't know how good it is. Do you have any opinions on it, Firebat?
I don't know about the Fairy Dragon, but the Frothing is definitely sweet. I've never tested Fairy Dragon in Warrior, but when you play Frothing against Mage, they panic. And for good reason. That card is absurd when not removed, and Mage tends to try and do their own game plan without interacting with your board all too much, aside from freezes. And if you just freeze that guy, he's going to keep getting bigger, and eventually he's going to be allowed to attack, and it's going to be a hard time for you. So I think that card is really powerful versus Mage.
Gotcha. Zalay, any thoughts on any of these decks? Or you want?
I'm pretty into this Fairy Dragon and Warrior. A big way that these Bomb Warriors win games is just a good early curve. You get ahead on board, you push some chip damage, and then the bombs become devastating instead of kind of irrelevant. And Fairy Dragon's pretty tough to interact with. It's benefiting a lot from Rogue not being around to coin SI7 Age in it and not having a Miscreant making lackeys that farm it all the time. But if you just play Fairy Dragon uncontested on turn 2 and your opponent doesn't have minions to deal with it, it's going to push a boatload of damage and really just make the whole bomb package way more relevant. In contrast, I want to talk about why I think Control Shaman is a poor choice. A lot of the metagame has a lot of kind of backloaded burst damage, kind of anti-control tools naturally, such as Bomb Warrior. They spend the early game shuffling bombs into your deck, and then all of a sudden you have a bunch of bombs in your deck, and they play Dr. Boom for a bunch of boom bots, and all the burst kind of comes at once towards the end of the game, and that's really difficult to survive and heal through with cards like Walking Fountain because you're only playing one card a turn. You have to deal with the 7/7 and the boom bots, and you got all this burst damage coming. Or you'll see a similar thing with Rogues will play Togwaggle, set up a treasure, set up a big burst damage turn with the Sharks, and you just can't stop that and heal through that with cards like Walking Fountain. So it's really important to be proactive because if you give your opponents time, if you're not applying pressure, if you're not turning up the heat, they will set up these wombo combo strategies that murder you. Holy Wrath from Paladin. Like there's just so many decks that set up some kind of wombo combo that you're just not going to heal through with Walking Fountain.
Yeah, you're not going to have Mojo Master every game to bail you out of those late game scenarios. Firebat, you want to say something?
Yeah, I agree. I think Control is pretty freaking dead right now. I saw people having success with Control Warrior on ladder a little bit ago. I think Zeddy had a list, and people were, I guess, having success with Control Shaman. But I kind of have to agree with what Zalay's saying. Fundamentally, all of the best decks in the game right now, you look at Warrior, Hunter, Rogue, Mage to some extent, but a lesser extent, have just like naturally built-in anti-control tools in their deck. Mage has like Mana Cyclone, I guess, but Warrior Dire Frenzies, like you can't compete with if Warrior or if Hunter does it appropriately, they can set up 50 plus burst every single game with their Dire Frenzies. And you just can't really control that. 50 in one turn from Dire Frenzied minions. If you're not pressuring them, they have infinite time to set that up, and that'll get you. The bombs from Warrior could come at any time, and if they kind of come at the end of the game or come at a turn where you have to be dealing with the board, you lose. And then Rogue as well has Togwaggle and even just Waggle Pick shenanigans. This deck list doesn't have any weapon removal, so like Waggle Pick can allow Leroy to just hit you for an absurd amount of burst in conjunction with preps and eviscerates and stuff like that. So Control, I would say, if you want to climb the ladder and have a high win rate, and you want to learn what the best decks in the current metagame are, I would say stray as far away from Control as you can. The closest thing to Control should be proactive Bomb Warrior, because it's just those archetypes and that style of gameplay is at the weakest I think it's ever been in the history of Hearthstone.
Which I want to say I think is a relatively good thing. Like I myself, as a personal play style thing, I kind of like Control decks, and I like those longer, grindier games. But I think for the health of Hearthstone, I think it's good to have games end after a certain period of time. And so having natural anti-control tools all over the place so that the best decks aren't control decks is a great thing, because a lot of people, sometimes you only have 10 minutes to play a game, and you'd like to play a game of Hearthstone without feeling like you have to concede prematurely because you just don't have time to grind it out against a control deck. So I think it's, a very nice thing to make the game fun and more appealing and more available to more people, that you're not likely to run into a 30-minute matchup. You can play a 10-minute game of Hearthstone pretty consistently.
I even think the Bomb Warrior Mirror is played incorrectly at a lot of levels, and if you play it more aggressively, it shouldn't go longer than turn 8 or 9, maybe 10. I think it very rarely gets to a situation where the players stabilize. Usually one player has Blastmaster Boom, and the other player dies. That's my experience with the matchup. I think keeping Dr. Boom off the mulligan is actually a bait. Like, that matchup goes pretty fast, and if you can curve out ahead of them, you can usually put in a lot of chip damage. And if you curve out and have Blastmaster Boom, they're dead every time. If you've won
I'm taking that bait. I'm keeping the boom punch.
I think it's a bait, dude.
I'll take the bait. I'm taking it every time. Hook me.
Yeah. I went like 12-1 in testing. Like, that's a small sample size, obviously. 12-1 in testing, mulliganing for 1-drops, never keeping Dr. Boom. Never keeping Blastmaster Boom.
1-drops and booms. That's basically what I'm.
Well, if you had a 1-drop and a boom, I'd say you'd probably get away with keeping it.
I'd keep either one.
But I think people have been analyzing that matchup wrong and have been saying that, oh, you need to outvalue them. You need to keep the value. No, you kill people. People blow up. Bombs exist.
Get ahead, get them dead. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, there was one game in Grandmasters I remember last week. I think that, if I recall correctly, one player kept Dr. Boom in their opening hand, but they really didn't get a chance to play. They played it and then died the next turn.
That was, Nalgadon versus Purple. Nalgadon set out a tweet before the match that said, I bet you I'm going to lose this stupid matchup by not drawing Dr. Boom. Oh my God, this is dumb, sort of thing. I'm paraphrasing. It's similar to that. And then he drew Dr. Boom, Mad Genius, all 3 games on turn 7. And lost the series, and Purple didn't draw it in 2 of the games because he killed him. It's overrated to no end, I think. I think one keeping Dr. Boom Mad Genius, especially in the sideboarded versions of the Bomb Warrior Mirror, where you have the 5/5 that adds a bomb as well as the other bomb cards, is just a straight up mistake. And I think you can cry about all you want and not having Dr. Boom on curve. Turns out sometimes it's not even what you want.
Interesting. You're saying some very, at least in my opinion, unpopular lines of thinking here. So someone in chat says you should make an. So I'd love to see your take on it if you can flesh out that idea further. So the wrap up this segment here before we go into the mailbag, we each were asked to present a deck that we like using newly buffed cards and talk about why we like it. And I called the watch list. So I guess I can go first here. So I did have 2 priest deck lists prepared. One of them was this one. It's a combo priest, so I think this is a shout out to Zalay. That utilizes Divine Spirit Inner Fire, but just you know also some of the new mech cards that came out, right? You have Snip Snap that's in there, of course. You gotta, it's great. But the extra arms at 2 mana is everything that I hoped it would be. Whenever you stick a Northshire Cleric or just have a Northshire Cleric, it just makes it so much more convenient to make bigger plays in spots that I didn't really think. And then you just have the normal stuff, right? Which is like you have all these silences to not only deal with all those people's mech shenanigans, but to push through with the Inner Fire damage. So I want to toss it over to Zalay. Like, do you think this deck has potential? It hit number 64 Legend as of today.
Oh God, I think this deck would be so much better with Radiant Elemental and Shadow Visions. That when I see extra arms, I'm tempted to explore Wild just so I can play those tools together. That seems like a really good time. Extra arms is an extremely good card. I talked about it quite a bit in my next Omni/Slash video and why I think it's great. But as for this deck itself, and do I think it has potential? It could potentially be fun. I don't believe in it at all. No, there's not enough consistency. It's got some really high-powered stuff in there, like Cleric and Extra Arms. I love that. The other cards, I get very upset very quickly.
Okay, fair enough. Firebat, you don't have to make comments if you don't want, but you'd be next on deck. So you can make comments or you can present your deck next.
I don't know. I think that there's a decent amount of potential for things like this to exist. It usually farms control really well, and now it can high roll aggro sometimes. So I don't think it's the worst deck in the world to play Snip Snap. That card's insane. Really like that card. I think you want more. They need some more powerful 1-drops. Only having 4 1-drops is a little yucky. And it needs some more just like 2-drops that you can just play, because it only has 4 2-drops as well. So like this is a curve out deck with no comeback mechanics with a weak curve. That's my issue with it right off the bat. So you either need to add comeback mechanics or strengthen the curve for sure.
Okay. All very fair criticism. So Firebat, you submitted a warrior deck.
Okay. Yeah, but I put Snip Snap in it. But yeah, I think this is the deck that benefited the most of the buffs was Bomb Warrior. I think the question that was asked to us was, what deck do we think is cool that got the most benefit of the buffs? I went with the most benefit of the buffs part of the question, more so than the cool. And I think Bomb Warrior is absolutely insane with the buffs. I think Snip Snap really helped it. I think the new mechs, they took the best 2 mechs in the entire mech pool that you're not playing. So I guess not the entire mech pool, but the best 2 mechs that you're not playing and made them better. And it almost makes you want to play them. So they upgraded the 2/6, and now the Beryllium Nullifier is now a 4/8 instead of a 3/8. So there's more power off of your Omega assemblies and off your Dr. Boom hero power. And you have the Snip Snap now as well. So it really buffed Omega Assembly, Dr. Boom, and mechs in general. And I think this deck utilizes mechs the best out of any deck in the game. So,
yep.
No arguments.
Agree with that.
I think it definitely got the most buffs of any deck and was already a tier 1 deck. And I think it's like S tier.
I don't know if it got the most buffs. I got to think Christology for like Holy Wrath Paladin is the biggest buff. I just think that Warrior started at a higher power level and maintains that higher power level.
I actually don't think the Holy Wrath Paladin got that much of a buff from the Christology change. I think that deck had plenty of card draw and card draw ways and didn't really care about the card draw being, 1 mana squeezing in. Like that deck floats mana like no other. Like that deck is not hurting for, whereas like decks that try and tempo out and play things on curve, they care about mana reduction way more. But if you're playing a reactive deck that just floats on average X amount of mana a turn, I think Holy Wrath Paladin floats like just crazy. Most of their turns, they're floating 2 or 3 mana, I'd say. So I don't think it actually helps that deck that like it's obviously good. Like
they have too much
better than what it was.
Their limiting factor isn't mana crystals, it's hand space.
Hand space is an issue for them. Well, hand space allows them to dump things more easily because now it costs less mana. So it helps in that scenario a little bit. But I think for sure the Mech Paladin makes way better usage of the buff. But that deck started at a really low power level. But yeah, so I believe Warrior got the best end of all the buffs, which is absurd because the public has been crying about Warrior since the beginning.
All right. Soleil, what do you got for us?
I got a mage deck. I was playing this on stream today. I had a great time. Climbed from rank 3 to legend in about 4 hours. So I was doing a good amount of winning. So the only new card here is the 5-mana Luna's Pocket Galaxy, but the deck tries to exploit it pretty hard. You know, Sea Giants and Mountain Giants become 0 with Luna's Pocket Galaxy effect going on. And the Antonidas benefits so much from being at 1 mana because all of a sudden you can make more fireballs than you have time to play ever. And that's also part of why the Giggling Inventor is there, right? If you Luna's Pocket Galaxy, you're spending 5 mana, falling behind on board. You're under pressure. You need to survive somehow. Giggling Inventor helps you with that. And the mana cost of Giggling Inventor naturally pairs very well with the Conjurer's Calling. So that's a power spike that this deck sets up. On 10, you can go Giggling Inventor, Conjurer's Calling, or discount it with Luna's Pocket Galaxy and do that earlier potentially. So those are just things you're looking to set up and abuse. Powerful Battlecry Giggling Inventor plus Conjurer's Calling. Big minions plus big discount from Luna's Pocket Galaxy. That's the gist of it.
Cool.
I had a really sick game today where me and my opponent both played Luna's Pocket Galaxy on 5, and he hit the 1 mana Antonidas early, and I was able to make a pretty big board. But he had Frost Nova into Blizzard, and he was weaving in fireballs, and he set up lethal, and there was nothing I could do. But I play the Arcane Intellect, and I find a Magic Trick, and the Magic Trick finds an Astral Rift, and the Astral Rift finds a Shirvala, so I hit the bell. But then I also have to shoot a spell at my own board to make space to heal out of range. So it was intense, and I still would have lost if he hit the second Blizzard.
Wow, that's definitely a highlight reel.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for sharing these decks. I took it a direction of more like weird and out there, but you guys also brought in some like good twists on existing decks. So hopefully you guys enjoy that. Let's do the mailbag real quick, and then we'll wrap up with whose meme reigns supreme for this edition of Omnistone. So for the mailbag, we put out a Twitter question asking for you guys to submit anything that you guys want to ask us. So let's go ahead and bring up the first one here. So from eHero, he asked, thoughts on the idea of ladder change where you cannot play against the same class twice in a row. If you queue into Rogue, the next class cannot be Rogue. This was from the Rise of the Mech, I believe, patch notes that they're trying to fix matchmaking. But they also had the caveat that if you're in like a small enough matchmaking pool, like top legend, for example, this guarantee obviously does not.
This would be abused super hard. This is sort of like a class ban. You can't. If you know that you're not queuing into a certain class, you have to have a deck built for this specific metagame. So now all of a sudden I have to have at least 9 decks to queue up for a ladder, and I also get rewarded for queuing longer and longer chains of ladder. If you queue up 1 game of ladder, you're playing a generic deck. If you queue 100% of the time, right? If you play up 2 games of ladder, half the time you get a huge advantage of being able to play a tech deck to not play against 1 deck. So this rewards longer play sessions. It rewards building at least 9 or 10 different deck lists. It's something that competitive players will heavily take advantage of, and then less competitive players will be taken advantage of, feel bad about it, and start copying those tactics, and everybody starts getting kind of baited into this whole feels bad loop.
This changes if you switch decks.
Well,
so it doesn't apply. So if let's say you play Warrior versus Rogue, if you switch to a Rogue, then you can play another Rogue.
So what I could do is have 10 different Warrior decks built, right? I queue up Warrior deck number 1 is for a random opponent, and then Warrior decks 2 through 10 are for I'm not playing against this class.
It's per deck, I believe. It's on an on-deck basis. It's not a...
Oh, so if I change my deck, then
yes, if you change your deck... If you choose a different, highlighted thing on your deck screen. I think that's what it is.
Well, that's a very different thing. That might work. But it's kind of counterintuitive. I feel like... Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's just... I guess we have to maybe get some more reps in it before we have our conclusive opinion on it.
Yeah, I don't know. I need more information and to be confident to really comment on it.
Sure. Okay. Firebat, anything, or should we just move on?
So yeah, this is just the idea of this happening. It's not actually confirmed that this is happening or anything. They accidentally said that this was going to happen, right? And then later said, just kidding, that's not what we meant. We meant just against you can't queue against the same player twice, not the same class.
right?
Oh, okay.
Well, that sounds
I
nice.
read the notes as in you can't. Okay, gotcha.
So
Well,
like
that-
this guy like building on what if that thing that they released on Twitter was true, because they accidentally said that it was the same class and same player that you couldn't play against, and then they went back and corrected it and said you can't play against the same player, not the same class. But then they
Okay.
also added in the note that, oh, if you're at high legend, you can play against the same player still.
Right, because there's
So it doesn't affect us at all for legend. You know, if you're at like 200 plus, the pool of players is super small, and you visit the same people a lot every time.
I think it's only at high legend where you would want that clause of not playing the same player multiple times. I feel like if I were at rank 5 consistently, I would so rarely face the same person multiple times. I would enjoy that experience of kind of building kind of a relationship with that person that I'm playing against multiple times, right? Not a friendly relationship, more of a combative one. But that you know, it makes the games more interesting to you. It's more of a problem when you're at high legend, you queue into the same person over and over again, and then there's all of a sudden you have to wait to queue because they're going to counter queue you, and then that's not fun for anyone.
I mean, it depends on your definition of it, though, right? Like, because you guys care a lot more about top end legends. Some people, their goal is just to hit rank. If they keep hitting the same person that counters them over and over, like 2 or 3 times in like 5 games, I think that's pretty frustrating experience.
It's for the people at in Wild, I think, is the people that benefit from this the most.
Low population.
Because Wild queue times are like 5 or 6 minutes. When I was watching Admirable play Wild, he gets to like top legend Wild every season because he enjoys it. And the queue times are absurd at every rank.
There's not even enough to fill like top 200 legend, I think, for Wild anymore because of there's just not that much interest in it. But you know, that's not really an episode. That's probably an entire episode and a half that we'll have to spend talking about Wild in order to properly do it justice. Thanks for the question. I think it's good that we got clarity on that. Let's do the next one here real quick. Armoret says, I try to play Hearthstone 1 to 2 hours a day, but I can never seem to get past rank 15. I watch all the tournaments and Grandmasters and all the Omni / videos. This guy's a man of culture. Is there anything more I can do to rank higher, or is it I just need to play more games?
Well, if you play 1 to 2 hours a day, that is plenty to get to legend. After, I'd say, I don't know how many. What is the time frame are we talking that you've been playing for? Is a really important question. If you've been playing for months doing this, then you should be able to make it to legend. I would think. If you've just started doing this, then if it's day 3. Keep it up, and then you'll probably learn more and get there. I think an important thing to do that can be often forgotten about is self-reflection. Every time I personally play in the Grandmasters, I go back, watch the entire game, and take screenshots of all the important decisions I had, and then write down what I could have done differently, and what kind of happened and whatnot. So I would think if you want to try and improve, the number one thing to do is self-reflect. Don't just jam more games mindlessly. Like, go back, look at what your plays were, see what you could have done differently. And, don't always blame RNG, for example. If you lose, you can't just be like, I got unlucky. You have to be like, all right, I got unlucky, but how could I have dealt with being unlucky? What could I have done differently to maybe avoid getting unlucky? Well, now that I have gotten unlucky, what's the next step? Because a lot of people, they tunnel vision, they get unlucky, and they're like, screw it, I got unlucky, this game sucks. Well, you have to be like, all right, I got unlucky, so we're here now. Now, how do we fix it? And then you work through it.
I love what Firebat's saying. He's so right about self-reflection being a great learning tool. And also, I want to add on to that and say, I think focusing while you're in the game and planning to avoid getting lucky are also important steps. So, if you always play Hearthstone while talking to your girlfriend and watching Netflix and you have 4 streams up, obviously keep my stream open, but you can close Firebat's and all the other streams and tell your girlfriend to leave you alone because you're trying to play some Hearthstone right now and you want to win some games. And in order to win games of Hearthstone, it's a lot of focusing. You gotta dial it in. You can't just walk away when it's your opponent's turn and expect to perform just as well. But during your opponent's turn, you should be thinking about, okay, what is my opponent thinking right now? Which cards is he touching and why? What is he likely to have in his hand? What does his play tell me about his strategy and for future turns? What does his play tell me about what he doesn't have in hand? There's so many things to be focusing on at all times, not just during your turn, during your opponent's turn. You need to be really focused, and you need to be planning to avoid getting unlucky. That's one of the things that makes players like Firebat so great is putting themselves in great positions to win and playing around negative outcomes. It looks like good players get luckier because they put themselves in positions to get luckier, and they avoid putting themselves in positions to get unlucky. And it's really easy to be lazy and sloppy and say, I got unlucky. And it's also a waste of time, and you don't get better that way. So playing more games might help, but I think what you really need to do is focus more while you are playing games, do more planning ahead, more predicting what's going to happen, and what's the best thing I can do to set up for that.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, the focus thing is a really big thing because I know a lot of people like to watch streams and watch tournaments while they play Hearthstone, and I imagine you do as well because you say you watch all the tournaments and all the Grandmasters and all the Omni videos, so you're for sure got it up on another screen or something while you're playing the game, and you're gonna be distracted. You're not gonna have your focus there. Another good thing that I think is very beneficial, you got to memorize all the meta decks. To be able to play around decks efficiently, you have to know what they're going to do. And to know what they're going to do, you got to know which cards cost which mana and what they're going to play on which turn. So a good strategy for that, it sounds like homework, is you pull out a piece of paper and then you write down all the cards in order in order by mana cost in all the meta decks, and make sure you commit those to memory. That's like a huge tool because then you're like, all right, it's going to be turn 5 coming up. What does Hunter do on turn 5? And then you look at your thing and it's like, Hunter does this on turn 5. These are their 4 possible options, and then you plan around those options. It's really as simple as that to try and play around what people can do in their decks. You don't got to make crazy hand reads to try and figure out what's in your hand. You got to be like, all right, it's turn 5. Every time on turn 5, they do one of 4 things, and set yourself in position around that. If you don't know what the cards are in their deck, you can't set up around them. So the first step is memorizing what cards are in your opponent's deck. Everybody net decks at every level, and it's pretty obvious what most of the cards are, besides like 4 or 5 different weirdo cards. But the other 25 you're going to know, and you got to commit those to memory for sure.
Yep. I guess I'll just finish it off because you guys said a lot of great stuff for this master's class of Hearthstone. Is that in any multiplayer activity period, whether it's real life sports or games or anything else, you have to know the enemy. Like you have to. It's such a requirement in order to progress. The only games that you can get away with doing that are like games that either are extremely casual or just one player straight up. You know, like if you play street basketball, you can just focus purely on shooting the ball. You don't have to worry about defense, but you're not actually getting better, right? You're not actually progressing. If your goal is to get past rank 15 and improve as a player, you have to know the enemy. And I mean, there's a lot of famous quotes on it. But definitely learn the game, not just on your side. It's a multiplayer game, so you have to learn what your opponents want to do. All right. We took a long time answering that question, but it was a fantastic answer. But I think in order to finish out this episode in a timely fashion, let's go to Whose Meme Reigns Supreme, featuring myself and Zalay. Our challenge is similar to what Firebat and Kibler had last week, which was 20 legendaries and 10 spells. And then we open it up to every card in Hearthstone for Wild. And I have to... Zalay, are we friends? We are friends.
I'm logging on right now. Sorry.
Okay. Well, I meant to unbound that, but yes.
Yeah, but you wouldn't see me, right? Because I'm not online. You should see me logging on now.
Okay. Gotcha.
I hope we're friends. I certainly didn't delete you. What did you do, Frodan?
Nothing. I sometimes go offline if I'm really ashamed, but that's not usually the case right now. Okay.
Uh-oh.
Oh, this.
I have to go back. Yeah. I made a standard challenge.
Standard game.
I'm pretty casual about this Wild stuff.
I got you. I challenge you.
I'm 4 cards short of a full deck. What did I do?
That's a bug. It's a bug.
Yeah.
You just click
finish the deck off? Yes or no?
You have to click the deck, and then it should complete it automatically just when you open it.
So I say yes, finish automatically?
No, I've never had it say finish automatically. Usually it just automatically puts the cards back in. It's a new bug since the latest patch. Randomly, it crashes when you're doing practice games. Like if you're in like a series, it'll randomly crash at the deck screen, and then you have to go back in, and then you can't challenge anyone until you click on all your decks, and it fills them back up to 30.
That's weird.
So, yeah, when we were doing playtesting, that is happening a lot. So hopefully they fix that bug before the Grandmasters, because I think if it crashes in the match selection screen, that's an auto loss for whoever it crashed for.
Uh-oh.
So,
That'd
So
be
are we
really
ready
bad.
to start this game? We're gonna do this thing.
Yeah.
I just
think
want to
we're
mention this
gonna
card has
go-
not been Hall of Famed somehow. Never got nerfed. It just doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, I can't believe that card still exists. It's been
Jungle
in
Giants. I feel favored.
Well, we apparently had similar ideas. Oh gosh.
The Brotherhood, whatever he said.
Oh no.
Hit him in the head.
Oh no.
Kill him so he's dead.
All right, well, this has been a great episode of Omnistone. Thanks, guys, for watching.
Well, we spent a lot
Edwin's
of time
fair.
explaining. Maybe you can kill it. Use
Yeah.
your naturalize. This is wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think I have. Well, it's.
Remember when they nerfed 3 rogue cards like a couple of weeks ago, and none of them were this one? Sweet.
They say it's justifiable because you have to invest resources into it, and
Oh,
you can't reload after it. But it looks like your hand is still completely full.
I don't know.
You have an
I
8/8.
seem to be spending all of my mana every turn, and he
Yeah.
has half of his life.
No, but there was so much risk associated with this, right?
Very risky.
What if he killed it and gave you your 2 cards you spent on it back?
You know what? Should we turn up the risk value a little bit here, just see what happens?
I think he'd get away with it, yeah.
Yeah, we can probably get away with some BM here. Ooh, that stings.
Looks like it didn't dodge those nerfs.
All right, let's push the 1. Looks like that could hit a break point. That was unlucky, though.
Tough turn here.
Looks like you got a lot of value over there.
I do have a lot of value. I got you for 6.
Whew, close game, close game. Don't need to counter Q.
Oh man. Well, good news is that I can't play you twice in a row. That's for the patch notes.
All right.
Wow, that was a lot faster than I anticipated. I was cutting a question at the end of the mailbag because I thought that we would need.
Well,
more.
let's go back and answer the question.
Let's circle back.
We got time.
Okay, sure.
Edwin, this is the guy with the question. Thank Edwin for us being able to answer your question.
Sure. All right. Let's pull up another question here. The tournaments need a match time limit implemented. The term limit is not nearly enough to keep tournaments running smoothly.
It's I think that's more of a thing for like the viewers, right? So if viewers feel like the tournaments are boring and are getting disengaged, and we can see that from like stats, right? So if you pull up the stats on Twitch and they're like, we're losing viewers during games, then that would indicate that during games players are finding themselves like, screw this, they're taking too slow and stopping watching. If that phenomenon's happening, then I think, yeah, maybe something needs to be done. But as far as I know, viewership only drops on breaks, really, and continually grows.
It climbs the longer the game goes. In fact, this is a very bad statistical correlation for a lot of people who don't like this stat. But Warrior Mirrors gain the most viewership in Hearthstone tournament.
The longer the game is actually
longer the
on the
game.
screen is just better. So
Boy,
I
is
think,
that misleading. Hold on, let me jump in here.
Of course, I'm saying it's a correlation.
Of course, viewership climbs during games and longer games. It goes up more because the alternative is commercials. Do you want to watch literally any game of Hearthstone, no matter how disinterested you are, or a commercial? I'm thinking that any game of Hearthstone wins 100% of the time, and it's a landslide. So that's why, yeah, of course, viewership goes up when we're watching long, boring Warrior Mirrors. That doesn't mean people want to watch boring Warrior Mirrors. I mean, Warrior Mirrors don't have to be boring, but a lot of times, let's be honest, they certainly can be. I think a chess clock where you have like 10 minutes to play the entire game would be a great improvement to Hearthstone, not only for like scheduling rounds, but also for keeping game time length down and preventing players from roping simple decisions too often. It's not something that's easy to do with how Hearthstone's programmed, but if they could do it, I think it would be a great improvement.
Yeah, I agree that would be an improvement. I think it's overly optimistic to expect them to do that. We don't even have tournament mode. But if tournament mode did exist, I wish that would be a feature in tournament mode, especially just for the scheduling alone. Like the scheduling for open qualifiers has been complained about and it's been just a disaster the entire year, and people are freaking out about it still, that the scheduling and the time they're spent in these open cups is horrible. We had to change all the open cups from best of 5 to best of 3 because to make the time more manageable. So we're actually compromising competitive integrity of the tournament to try and make the schedules a little bit better when we could fundamentally change the clocks and make the scheduling work better there and still have best of fives even. And I think it would be more interesting as a player as well, because there's some turns where you got to spend a lot of time and there's some turns where you really don't. So like from a play standpoint, animations would piss me off a lot less if I had more time on the turns where there's a ton of them and less time on the turns where I didn't have to have a ton of them. So I think it would be a great improvement, but I don't think they'll ever do it.
I don't know too much about the reasons why they wouldn't do it, but I definitely agree.
There's a lot of things where there's no reason not to do it, and there's huge reasons to do it, and they haven't been done for 5 years.
There's reasons not to do it, but I don't know.
We just don't know what the reasons are. But I thought they would never buff cards, and they did, and it's great. So who knows? Maybe someday we'll get tournament mode and a chess clock.
Yeah, I imagine that'll eventually happen over time. I think it'd be silly if they because if they continue Hearthstone esports the way it is, eventually they're going to invest, like dozens of millions of dollars. And it's like, at this point, they're losing money very slowly, kind of like what we're talking about on social media. They're losing money by all these inefficiencies happening. They need to hire additional admins, more third-party organizers, like obviously time costs, like overhead, and just like all these different things that could be improved across the board.
I heard, this is like, I don't have a source on this, but I heard I heard from you, actually. You said that when they go overtime for the GM League, that it costs them a lot of money. You didn't give a specific number, but you said going overtime on the GM League is ridiculous, and Warrior Mirrors might bankrupt the Hearthstone thing. You said it's hyperbole, right? They're obviously not going to bankrupt, but you were just saying the Warrior Mirrors are costing them tons of money because they keep going overtime. The schedule for me in GM League has been wrong by 3 to 4 hours every single time. Because if it's slightly off in APEC, things take slightly longer than an hour. Then that transfers to EU, which gets delayed, which then transfers to Americas, which gets delayed. So it's been almost 3 or 4 hours off every single time. So that means they're going 3 or 4 hours into overtime every single broadcast.
Yeah.
So the scheduling and the timing of things, just making tournaments more predictably timeable, has to net earn them money in the long run.
I want to say there's potential for a I want to say there's a compromise here regarding it's not just for tournaments that we could use a chess clock, and chess clocks don't have to be purely like you have 10 minutes for the whole game. You can do an increment where you have, say, 5 minutes for the whole game plus 15 seconds for every turn. So it's kind of an in-between where right now we have like 75 seconds for every turn, and a pure chess clock where you have 10 minutes for the whole game. You have maybe 5 minutes for the hard turns and 15 seconds to get you through every turn passably. And so you can kind of, I think this could be a huge improvement to the ladder experience as well, not just for tournaments.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's, again, flurry of reasons to argue against it, whether it's like internet connection or technology reasons, or maybe just philosophical decisions of like they don't want to ever make Hearthstone feel like that versus more of a welcoming type of relaxed type environment as opposed to
I've never gone to anywhere with a chess clock and been like, I need to leave now. This is not welcoming. I don't know. What is so unwelcoming about a chess clock compared to the rope?
For a long time, I'm just throwing out different possibilities and
the rope scares the hell out of me though. When the rope hits, I panic. My entire
I love that fuse thing.
Like the rope hits and I'm freaking out. That's way less welcoming in my mind.
If the rope finished burning and then it signified that you lose the game, I think that like increases ladder anxiety. I think that makes it very difficult. It makes like approaching ranked more intimidating for a lot of players who don't play it very like intensely, and people want to think through their plays. Like I'm not saying that this is like things that I necessarily abide by or even believe in myself, but I can see like arguments being made against it, which I don't personally want to entertain too much. But I'm just giving different reasons that it could be. Ladder anxiety is like a real thing, and I feel like Hearth's actually done a pretty good job to stop that. I think one of the biggest things was dropping ranks, and they addressed it. And I know this because I had a lot of anxiety in like almost every other game I played, and Hearthstone's one of the few games where I actually don't mind at ladder anxiety, unless I'm like in top 100 legend every now and then I freak out because it's very hard to maintain it. For myself, of course, for you guys, it's a walk in the park. But that's why you guys are there, and that's why I'm here. why we should wrap up this episode before we go too much longer. Thanks for the questions, everybody, and thanks for a fantastic episode. And a shout out to our special guest, Zalay, for doing such a wonderful job filling for Brian Kibler. I thought you did an immaculate presentation on how to get better at Hearthstone and also your thoughts. So, Zalay, any final words from this episode?
Thanks so much for having me. It's always fun to be on Omnistone. I don't always have time for it, but it's great to be here, and I love hanging out with you two dudes.
Sweet. More to come in Vegas. Well, at least for myself. Firebat, any last words?
Snip snap, man. Put it in your deck. Card's good. If you walk away from the show learning one thing, let it be that Snip Snap is a good card.
All right. Well said. If you guys miss any part of this episode, make sure to check out the VOD YouTube. Omni/ puts out all the kind of videos too that you can watch along with the tournaments and Grandmasters. And, maybe you'll be able to break rank 50 as well if you keep watching. But if you guys also want to ask for more follow-up questions, say, for example, we said something here and you want more clarity or you want us to dive in more, make sure to follow Omni/ on Twitter at Omni/ and make sure to ask there. Outside of that, it's been real fun. Next week, we'll be hopefully back on Brian Kibler's channel and hopefully wish all the best for Kibler over in Boston. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time for more Hearthstone action.